The world we live in feels safe until the moment you wake up and can't move. These are stories of sleep paralysis. Subscribe and hit the like button.
I returned home on that strange evening when the city seemed to stop breathing. Not silence, but anticipation. Like before a thunderstorm, but without the thunder. The light in the stairwell blinked 3 times as I walked down the corridor. For a moment, I thought I saw another silhouette behind me in the dark glass door. But when I turned around, it was empty. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. The absence of sound became so dense that I felt like I needed to push a path through the silence with my hands just to walk. I placed the keys on the table, turned on the night light in the hallway, just so the light didn't feel dead, and walked into the bedroom. The new pillow was waiting for me, fluffy and cool. I lay down and closed my eyes. Thoughts quieted down. The world contracted into a small point. And then something flashed in the darkness. Once, almost imperceptibly, I thought it was a reflection from car headlights. A second time, it lasted longer. 2 gleams, like 2 coins floating in the air. A third time, and I realized they were eyes. Before I could process it, the paralysis struck, sharp and hard, like a cold impact against ice. I lay motionless. Consciousness was fully engaged. My eyes wide open. The darkness wasn't just darkness. It had a structure like smoke that isn't moving. And from it, 2 eyes were watching. Smooth, vet, reflective. They didn't glow, they stole the light. Any gleam, even the faintest. First, just a gaze. Flat, dead, clean. Then, they blinked. Not like human eyes. Too synchronized. Too even. I wanted to scream, but my voice was somewhere in my chest, as if wrapped in cotton wool. The eyes blinked again, but this time vertically. There were 2 sets of eyelids. Then a voice emerged. The voice was not a voice. It was a breath that became a word. A quiet, sticky intonation crawling into my ear. You are awake. The eyes lowered, leveling with mine. Finally, watching. A coldness passed through, bypassing the sound from somewhere in the darkness. Not physical, but one that pressed down on thoughts. I have been waiting for this. For a long time. The eyes widened, gathering all the room's gloom in their depth. You were looking into the darkness without me. That was incorrect. They changed shape. The pupils became thinner, like slits. You know that darkness is never empty. Someone is always watching first in it. The eyes slowly approached. They reduced the distance between blinks. Blink. Closer. Blink. Closer still. Now I could see tiny reflections of my own face in them. Distorted, as if in a funhouse mirror. I see a gleam in you. I need it. He leaned in closer. I want to borrow your eyes. Just a bit. Just for one night. My eyelids twitched in terror. The eyes noticed. Don't blink. Don't close up. If you close, I will enter. And then he whispered directly into my brain. Because I'm already touching what opens your eyes in the morning. The darkness behind the eyes changed. I saw a corridor in it that did not exist in my home. Long gray. And in it, dozens of tiny blinks that hid as soon as I focused. The eyes noticed that I noticed. They widened, filling with something wet. Oh, you see them? Excellent. These are mine, the ones I collected. The ones that blinked at me first. The eyes flashed gleefully, like a child showing off toys. And you will join them. If you close up, I felt my vision begin to tremble. My eyelids try to fall shut on their own. The eyes leaned so close that I could see thin micro cracks on their surfaces. Don't blink. Hold on. I want so badly to look from inside your head. The darkness behind them began to expand, as if a portal to another world was trying to force its way into the room. The whisper became multi-voiced. We are here. We are near. Let us watch. Let us out. My body was shaking, although I was outwardly motionless. And then this happened. The eyes touched mine. Not physically, but a visual touch. I felt an alien thought inside me. I will see for you. You will rest. Forever. My eyelids twitched. Betrayingly. Once. Twice. The eyes trembled, opening wider than human norm. Yes, there it is. Let it go. Let it go. I couldn't hold on any longer. The paralysis burst like a torn thread. I lunged up with a sound as if I had exhaled all the air in the world. The eyes vanished. The darkness became flat. Ordinary. I sat on the bed, soaked in sweat. And then I saw it. On my pillow, near where my head had been, lay two tiny gleams, just as before. Only this time, they didn't just shine. They blinked. Twice. And went out. I spent the evening in a way I hadn't allowed myself in a long time, just lying on the floor and listening to music from an old, slightly crackly speaker. I wanted to detach myself from the day that had completely drained me. Phone put away, minimal light, just a faint yellow lamp in the corner. I stared at the ceiling until, track by track, my thoughts straightened out. When I finally got up, my legs swayed slightly, as if the floor wasn't completely solid. I attributed it to fatigue. I rearranged the blanket, fluffed the pillow, and lay down on the bed. The bed felt familiar, and yet somehow different. Softer? Higher? I couldn't say for sure. I closed my eyes. I plunged into sleep as if I had been switched off. I woke up abruptly. My consciousness turned on like a light, but my body did not. Paralysis squeezed me from all sides. My eyes opened slowly through the cold. And then I noticed the first thing: the bed was higher. Not by a couple of centimeters, but significantly. The distance to the floor seemed unnatural. Then came the sound, muffled, vet wooden, as if an old beam was stretching to its limit. CRRR. The bed lifted further. I felt in my back, my chest, my entire body seemed suspended. The mattress trembled, but not from spring movement, from something holding it up from below. And from under the bed came, "Don't move." The voice was low, muffled, as if speaking through a thick wooden lid. Shuffling. A second one. A third one. As if something was slowly sliding a wide palm across the floor. The bed lifted more, and I felt that a space had appeared between it and the floor. Large. Expanded. If only a box could fit under the bed before, now a person could stand there at full height. Then breathing. Deep hot. It hammered the mattress from below, as if someone was exhaling right into the bottom of the bed. I haven't finished watching you from below. The bed jumped up a few centimeters. Sharply. Elastically. I couldn't scream. My body wouldn't respond. Hands emerged slowly from under the bed, like tentacles from a dark well. Some were long and thin, others short, gnarled. Some resembled human hands, but with 3 fingers. Others curved backward like a spider's. They all grabbed the edge of the bed and pulled it upward. You are finally higher. The voice became almost human, articulated, deep, unhurried. The bed was lifted higher. I was already so high that I could see my nightstand below shoulder level. I want to see you fall, first upward, then to the right, then toward the wall. I hung in the air on a platform held by the hands of a creature I couldn't fully see. The bed glided through space, and the monster breathed so heavily beneath the mattress that the blanket rustled. Closer, closer, closer. The voice became clearer, more alive. It gained an intonation of tasting something. If it had whispered before, now it spoke. The bed was lifted again, this time with a jolt. I nearly hit my head on the ceiling. The monster spoke so softly that I could barely hear. Not that high yet. You don't want to fall incorrectly. Then it added, clearly, gently, "Don't be afraid. I'll catch you below. I've been waiting for you to fall through." I looked down, and the floor wasn't there. A space opened up beneath the bed that couldn't exist in my home. A deep, black well plunging into darkness, cracks from which long fingers peered out, mist that billowed in drooping wisps. A dark surface like water, but it moved as if breathing. And the voice said, "That is my place. There I wait for those who fall from sleep." A large hand reached up from below, passed through the gap between the bed slats, and touched my chin. Far too carefully. "I want you to fall into me." Correctly. Deeply. The bed swayed. I was sliding toward the edge. First my feet, then my calves, then my knees. I felt my body preparing to fall into the dark maw that waited. The monster whispered, "Now." I felt the paralysis crack, painfully, with a sound like a dry branch. I lunged backward to the middle of the bed, as if someone had pushed me from below. The bed collapsed to the floor with a muffled thud. The room quiet, everything motionless. The world was normal. But under the bed leg lay a wide, dark print, as if from a palm that had held the bed from below. The print was warm, and on the floor itself, beneath the bed, a fresh carving appeared. "You rise easier than you fall. We will try again." In the evening, I stayed at my laptop longer than I should have. My eyes were tired, my fingers ached, but an intrusive thought kept running through my head. Finish it. Get to the end. Close all the folders. I was deleting hundreds of old files, opening folders I hadn't seen in years. And the longer I scrolled through this digital chaos, the stronger a strange feeling arose, as if I wasn't reviewing my own life. As if those photos, those documents, those videos were remembered by someone else, and I was merely repeating his motions. After an hour, I noticed a folder I didn't think I had ever created. The name was meaningless. The date, 20 years ago. The time, 2:11 a.m. I was a child then. I opened it. Empty. But the cursor trembled when I hovered over it, as if something was inside but hidden. The room began to smell like ozone, dry, sharp, as if someone had turned on a powerful electrical appliance. I shut down the laptop, but the smell didn't dissipate. It only became more intense. I walked to the bed. The air seemed to have grown heavier, as if the walls had tilted forward slightly. I lay down. My body was sinking into sleep, slowly but inevitably. Just at the edge of consciousness, I heard a sound. Crackle. Not like wood cracking, but like stepping on a charred piece of board and having it crumble into ash. I opened my eyes for a second. The hallway was dark. I wanted to lift my head. I didn't make it. Sleep fell on me abruptly, like a wet, dark curtain. I woke up as if I had been sharply pulled out of the water. My lungs inhaled on their own, but my body wouldn't obey. The paralysis was complete, familiar, but this time, something was wrong. The room was too quiet. The silence wasn't just standing there. It pressed down like a concrete slab. Above, on the ceiling, the moon reflected in a thin strip of light, but the shadow in the doorway did not obey the laws of light. It didn't fall to the floor. It stood, a dark vertical figure. When my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I saw the details. He was there, the old man in the burned suit. The suit was charred to a smoldering mass. Every movement he made caused black particles to fall to the floor. It was as if he continued to burn very slowly, smoldering without flame. And here was the most terrifying part. His body did not glow, but his eyes glowed like two small embers in a cold furnace. No whites, no igelites, only heat. He stood motionless for a long time. Too long. Then he tilted his head to the side, like a dog listening. And in the silence, a sound was heard, crackle. But this time he didn't step. The sound came from within him, from inside his chest, beneath charred pieces of bone. He took the first step, and then I felt it. Something in my own chest also slightly vibrated. My sternum painfully responded to his step like an echo. He stopped next to my bed. Slowly, as if with effort, he crouched down. Black ash sifted from his shoulders onto the blanket. I couldn't do anything. He leaned toward my face. I smelled it. Not just char, but the smell of burned possessions, human possessions. fabric, photo albums, books. Sikin. He raised his hand. When his finger touched my shoulder, I heard a sound. Hiss. The fabric of my t-shirt began to darken. And then he spoke. The voice was raspy, but not human, as if glowing embers in a furnace had arranged themselves into words. You sleep in a clean room. A pause. The air between us thickened. But in you, I see traces of my fire. His fingers slid across my chest, not with force, with tenderness, as if he was recognizing something. The finger stopped at my throat. Do not fear. A pause. It seemed he was patiently waiting for me to be scared enough. I do not burn. I only return. He leaned so close that I saw tiny tongues of heat inside his eyes. I returned that which once burned with you. I was squeezed inside. A memory. Fragmented. Hot light. Dark smoke. Someone scream. Mine or not mine, I didn't know. The old man seemed to sense it. He pressed his finger into my skin harder. The heat entered me. You forgot, and I waited. His second hand grabbed my chest. The strength was inhuman. Bones creaked but did not break. He whispered, I've looked for you for a long time. By the smell, by the ash, by the memory, which is not yours. His burning eyes rose to mine. Now, I will take that which you carried out of my fur. And at that moment, both his hands pressed sharply into my skin. I felt something being drawn out. Not blood, not breath, but something that lay deep within. The old man hissed almost joyfully. There it is, mine, not alive. He would have taken it if the paralysis hadn't broken. I tore myself away, fell off the bed, hitting my knees on the floor. The pain was real. The old man was gone. The shadow in the doorway was empty. The smell of ozone was dissipating. On my shoulder, a long, charred stripe. And in the air, a small black speck, like from a smoldering suit, was descending. It landed on the blanket and disappeared. But the worst happened a moment later. When I approached the mirror to examine the burned skin, I pressed my finger on the charred stripe and heard a faint sound, crackle, as if beneath the skin lay a thin film of ash, and some on the other side touched it accordingly. I came home a little earlier than usual in the evening. The day was rainy and humid, but not frightening, just a downpour that makes the city quieter. I longed for silence and peace. I wanted to disappear for a few hours, at least at home. I switched on the floor lamp in the living room, put my phone on charge, and decided to look through old photos. I don't know why. A sudden urge just came over me to see what I had kept over the years. The photos were varied. Childhood pictures, funny ones, awkward ones, random ones. Everything seemed normal, ordinary. As I scrolled through one of the folders, the screen suddenly went dark. It went black for a moment, so much so that I saw my own reflection in it. A second later, it turned on again. I blamed it on a battery glitch. I got up, turned off the light, leaving only a small night light in the hallway, and went to the bedroom. The room seemed darker than it should have been. I was sure I had left the curtains slightly open, but no light from the street was getting in. It was as if something was standing in front of the window, preventing the light from passing. I didn't pay it any mind, got into bed, and pulled the blanket up to my chest. My gaze stopped at the corner by the wardrobe. It was dark there, darker than the rest of the room, as if the paint on the wall had been replaced by a black hole. I stared into that corner for a long time, but decided it was just fatigue. I closed my eyes and fell asleep almost immediately. My consciousness switched on abruptly. No transition. No yente le awakening. I couldn't move. My breathing was shallow, alien, as if my body decided for itself when to inhale and when to exhale. I felt myself inside my own body, but had no control over it. I wanted to blink. My eyelids reacted with a delay. I wanted to move a finger. My body did not respond. The darkness in the room was so dense it felt like a substance. I examined the room. The outlines of the furniture were barely visible in the gray stripe of moonlight. Everything looked muffled, unreal. And then I noticed it. In the corner by the wardrobe, the darkness was moving. At first, barely perceptible, as if the wind was swaying smoke. Then, more distinctly, the dark mass peeled away from the wall, as if someone was tearing off a clinging shadow. It was rising, black, thick, viscous like a liquid. The darkness formed shoulders, then a head, arms. But there was nothing human about this figure. Not a single feature, no hint of a face. Just an emptiness that had a shape. The entity took a step forward. The darkness absorbed all the faint glow that was still visible in the room. No shadow fell upon it. It was the shadow itself. A second step, a third. The closer it got, the heavier the air became. I felt that there was less oxygen in the room. The world was becoming narrower, tighter. When it reached the very edge of the bed, I could barely see my own hands, swallowed by the blackness. The entity leaned in. I couldn't see its face, but I felt its gaze, not external, but direct internal, as if it was looking not into my eyes, but into my nervous system. Then the darkness spoke. The whisper sounded as if someone was crushing ice with their teeth. Y-G-L-O. The word resonated in my brain, not my ears. The entity stretched out a hand, long, shadowy, like a beam that emits no light. Its finger touched my shoulder. I expected cold, but instead I felt a loss. The warmth left the area of my shoulder, but something else disappeared with it. A small memory, a sense of a thought, a faint internal light. The darkness touched my chest. I felt fundamentally replaced at my very core. I felt something being pulled out of my rib cage. Not physical, but a part of what makes me me. The entity lowered itself, tore my face. It was breathing. It wanted to breathe me. The breathing was muffled, cavernous. It didn't heat the air. Instead, it chilled it so much that my vision began to dim. A whisper, closer. I will take that which glows. The hand of darkness lay on my chest. It pressed down. It slid inward, as if a shadow could have weight. And then, I stopped seeing the room. The light was gone. The bed was gone. The boundaries of the room dissolved. I was alone with the black entity, which grew, widened, and filled everything I knew about reality. It touched the center of my chest and said, "Itiki T-H-A-T, W-H-I-C-H-D-O-S-N-O-T-B-U-R-N." And I felt something tear out of me. As my self became lighter, as my thoughts crumbled into ash, I was disappearing, completely. The darkness compressed my consciousness, drawing out what it called lightness. For a moment, I ceased to be human, and suddenly, a jolt. My rib cage snapped forward like a spring. The paralysis cracked like thin ice. I abruptly sat up in bed, gasping for air. The room returned. The light was in place. The wardrobe was in place. The corner was ordinary. But in that spot on the wall where the walking darkness had stood, a large matte imprint remained. Darker than the paint. Moist. Cold. I got closer. I touched it. The wall was so icy that my fingers went numb. And at that moment, it seemed to me that the imprint, slowly, almost imperceptibly, was expanding. The darkness was still here. It was just waiting for me to close my eyes again.